Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Back with another episode of Keeping Current. I actually named this session Keeping Current is Hard to Do. This is Seth Bell from the KC Soccer Journal with me, Kerry Robinson from the KC Soccer Journal, Daniel Sperry from the KC Star. Said with attitude today, and Sperry knows why. Two big announcements today. Croy Bethune coming to the Current and Claire Hutton leaving the Current and going to Bay FC. Kerry, initial reaction?
So actually, when I found out about all of this, I was outside my car dealership because I had to get a paper signed for them, to get my car titled and everything. And I'd gotten it. I was sitting in my car, and I don't think I left the parking lot for a good 30 minutes. I was just parked trying to figure out what is happening. Um, Total whiplash. I really would have liked for them to release it all at the same time instead of, hey, we're getting Bethune, and then 10 minutes later, oh, goodbye, Hutton.
Yeah, that was a little bit weird about how that was announced. What do you think, Sperry?
I think the timing of it all is a disservice to everybody involved in it, to be honest. One, you have fans, so there's a mixed reaction of fans who are super hyped about Croy Bethune and then are immediately upset about Claire Hutton. And that overshadows the legitimate hype that people should have about the team acquiring a player like Croy Bethune. Now, it also is kind of a disservice to Claire because it looks like, oh, Claire's gone, but we replace you with something shiny. And in reality, Claire's a player that Kansas Cityans grew to love the last couple of years, has watched grown up before their very eyes as a player. When you sit there and you have a 20-year-old player on your midfield and Emma Hayes says, that's the future captain of the U.S. women's national team, and 2 weeks later that player's traded, that's going to rub fans the wrong way. So when you are in the timing of it, I dislike the timing of it so much because I think it's a disservice to the players. It's a disservice to the general conversation about this, and forever they are going to be linked for it. Inevitably, Chris Armas, whenever he speaks to the media about this, the next opportunity that they have is going to be fielding questions at the same time about losing Claire and the process and all of that, while also talking about Croy Bethune and being excited about that. But this is a big deal for a franchise who invested in this player at a young age, gave her the opportunity right off the bat. And now it seems like a lot of what created that success that they've seen on the field, not just for Claire, but for the team, is going away. You don't have Vlaco anymore. You don't have Claire anymore. There's no Bia. There's no Haley Mason. You're sitting there and you're kind of like, okay, where is this going? Why are we tearing down after winning a Shield? And I think that that's a valid concern that comes with all of this. And the timing of Croy coming in reality, in the announcement of it, right? The first deal that was put forth was the Hutton leaving to there. The team does not include any quotes from ownership, any staff, does not even include a statement from Claire in that press release. It's 3 paragraphs and it's out.
That seems pretty not good.
It's not great. And Washington had quotes from Croy, had quotes from their GM about the process and all of that. And so you've got to learn all this stuff about what happened with a player that you loved secondhand through The Athletic, through places that had exclusive interviews lined up with that ahead of time. And so obviously this is in the works for a while. Why could it not have gotten announced separate days? Or why could this have not been done in a fashion that kind of does both players the rightful service here? And I think, that's the hard part in the way that this all kind of unfolded. And I just think it does a disservice to the narrative, because a player like Croy is a good enough player that deserves her own time, her own space, her own article, her own spot where we can say, dang, we're really like, this is a great player. We think she's awesome. We think she'll do great things on the field in Kansas City. We want to hear from her about why she wants to be here. But like at the same time, like it's the players are not just like, oh, goodbye. Like the current fans will just cheer on whoever's there in red. Like they care
I
about
think
deeply
that is
about
their
these players.
expectation.
That might be the expectation, but it's a false expectation. I'm going to stop rambling now.
Yeah, I think, just kinda with how it all got announced, I really hate this era of NWSL that we're getting into of dropping it on a random Wednesday at 2 p.m., 3 p.m., whatever, because that's also how the Alley Center thing happened. But even just, like, a few years ago, they'd be like, "Hey, there's a blockbuster trade that's gonna be announced in a few days between this team, and this team." And I think back to 2018 where it was, like, the Houston Dash, Sky Blue at the time, and Chicago, whenever Chicago got, Sam Kerr, Carly Lloyd went up to New Jersey, and whoever went down to, Houston. But we knew that that was happening, and it gave people enough time, and the content creators at the time, to do a hype video for the incoming players because those were huge blockbuster trades of huge players.
Yeah. I think that there's a good PR thing that you never announce the announcement. It always leads to more hype and then eventual disappointment that I think is part of that kind of thought process. But I agree with you. The way it goes down, there's just I don't love it. And especially for fans who and people who see Croy for nothing. Wow, super cool. And you get to live in that for 10 minutes. And I know that's, sure, whatever. It's the way the world works, I guess, but I think it could have worked a lot better in how this was all put together because there's a way that they can celebrate like Claire moving on. We can talk about like some of these logistic things and behind like not behind the scenes as in I know things people don't, but like there's some things about Claire Hutton, the contract situation, timing of the move that kind of makes sense for how things have likely played out, is my assumption. And so you have those kinds of things. Like this is an opportunity to celebrate the fact that you just made the second highest or received the second highest transfer fee in NWSL history, and what is a top 10 fee that any team has received in the world this year for a player. That's a pretty freaking big deal as a club in that aspect. And if you're going to just say, okay, bye, this player that we've thought was going to be a piece of our core is gone in 3 graphs, it's a disservice to I think the impact that she had on Kansas Cityans in such a short time.
Yeah, and look, I never want to be in the situation like you don't make trades to make the team better. I don't want to be in that kind of situation. I do from having watched Claire and how she's progressed, I'm sitting here thinking this is a player that's going to be here again. You never know because contracts end, things happen, right? But this is a player you want to be here for the next 10 years, bossing that midfield, and chalking up a couple of trophies here and there every couple of years, right?
Mhm.
That she's that capable. Now, I know that her contract was probably going to run out at the end of this coming year, and that maybe you're just hedging their bet because she didn't want to sign a contract extension. But I'm going to bet you that sometime in the next month we're going to hear about a new contract at Bay. So she's probably going to sign one because they're not going to make this deal for $1 million, $1.1 million if they don't think that they can sign her. Because otherwise it's a 1-year loan of a super high dollar amount. So if they think they could sign her, why did she not want to stay here where she's already had success unless she thinks she can go there and have more success? Now, I mean, if it had been to England or something like that, okay, that sucks, but
Mhm.
that's so many players' dreams to go play
Mhm.
there, Spain, France, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I was going with it. Like, and looking at Hutton specifically, right? Like her contract, you said contract was up at the end of this year. You get into a spot where, as the current, you're probably looking for whatever. If you have a player that says, "I'm probably not going to sign a long term contract extension. I'd like to look elsewhere." Well, when you're in a spot where you don't have the draft anymore, where you can just kind of get young players for free and have them pulled into your roster and constantly have that cycle going, then you've got to go out and make those signings. Well, that costs a little bit more money to do because now for clubs, right? in that whole process. Players could say, oh, well, this team wants me out of college and this team wants me. So you're going to beat that offer. Starts costing more money for teams.
Yep.
Fair. So what happens is when you get in this spot, when you start having to think transactionally and you have a player that either says she wants out or says she doesn't want out now, but will want out in the next year. I have on good authority that is the same kind of thing that happened with Alex Loera as well, is that it was anticipated that she would eventually leave for Bay FC. She had a year on her contract. The Current eventually moved her on for something in return, which was allocation money that they got back as part of that trade for Alex Loera to Bay FC a few years back. And so that is a thing that comes into play here when you have a player on an expiring contract that says, I'm not going to sign a long-term deal. When that happens, then you've got to find out what you can get for that player at some point, because again, this is a transactional thing. If you, and the way that the NWSL has structured this incoming outgoing net fee thing that you're allowed to have over a year for these interleague transfer funds and all that kind of stuff, then you have to find a way to make that work, which is space for those transactions to be able to happen and all of that. If you're going to replace a player that's coming out, you got to be able to match what's coming in to kind of at least find yourself in that net zero with the whole season ahead of you, not knowing what else is going to pop up. So a player like Hutton isn't coming back, let's say, at the end of this contract. They try and move her to Europe. That is evident that she explored options in Europe, according to the report from The Athletic on the article written by our good friend Tamara Griffin. And so you look at that and you say, okay, well, the European window closed. And so none of the European teams that were probably going to sign her, which would either have been Barclays WSL or like Barcelona, Real Madrid, maybe Atletico Madrid in Spain are like the only other three clubs, maybe Wolfsburg, maybe Lyon or somebody like that could sign a player like that. So all those options are out the window. She can't go there. So then your next spot is within the league. And if you're Bay FC and you have this project and all the stuff that you're going, you say, okay, we're going to bank on it. They made some money off the sale of Azizat Oshuala to Saudi Arabia that they are able to use kind of towards another transfer and all that kind of stuff. So they do, and they get a blockbuster player that they can add to their midfield. And like you said, she could sign there long term, but the Current ultimately are in a spot transactionally where they have to create something in return for their investment. This is what happens in the men's game. This is what's going to happen in the women's game as it becomes more transactional and more financially fluid across borders and within the United States. And so all the outside things aside, from a transactional nature, it makes sense that the Current did the deal the way they did. But in the long run, you have to ask questions about why did that player not feel that here was that place? If you're a place that aspires to be the best team for women's soccer, the best place for women's soccer, blah, 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 all of the marketing stuff that we've heard.
Stadium, training center,
all that stuff.
Teal
right?
Rising, cups everywhere, shit like that.
We hear all of that. Why doesn't the player want to stay then? And like, why are they not signing a long-term deal? So why, if your aspirations are to be that, and their aspirations are to join something like that, because that's verbatim her quote that's in the article with Tamara Griffin, is about joining a place that has ambitions to grow and build and all this kind of stuff. That kind of flies in the face of what the Current say that they're trying to do. So what all goes on? And that's where the question marks, that's where the deal for Hutton doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And it doesn't feel right in that case. And I know these are separate things, but I'm going to add it on top a little bit. Is you had the situation with Alex Pfeiffer that mutually agreed to part ways when she still had a contract for another year and ended up at Bay FC. So two young players. And I mean, right now, obviously Claire Hutton's more valuable by a long shot because of where she's at with the women's national team and stuff like that. But we both thought Pfeiffer had a tremendous upside too. Mm-hmm. So that's two young players that have left and moved on in a short time span. The only young player that they've really retained is Katie Scott. And I mean, they've signed kids out of college and such forth, but as far as players retained, it's been them.
In a way, Michelle Cooper too, who signed her contract extension
True, but how long ago was that?
6 months ago.
Yeah. So I guess just since the end of last season, maybe
Yeah.
since Flacco
No,
left.
I understand what you're saying. I think there are ways to look at it, and those two were the first U18 initiative signings for the current, right? Pfeiffer and Hutton, and both of them are not on the roster. I think the whole point of the U18 initiative was to develop players at that age to be part of things moving forward. So, but coach is not there anymore. Technically, the GM that signed them isn't there anymore. I guess things change.
They do. All right, so I'm just gonna say I don't like the move. This is not anything against Croy Bethune because she's an amazingly good player. So, but like you said, the way it happened today, it feels like a Croy in, Claire out kind of situation. Like it's almost a trade, but it's not because they went different places. But so it's not anything against Croy Bethune. She's an amazingly good player. Different position on the field, different
Skill set.
Yeah. You can't say one's better than the other at this point because I mean, if I was going to argue for which one I would rather have long term, I would say Claire because I would build the spine of defense first, and she's 20 and Croy is 24, so that's 4 years younger and already almost solidified starter in the national team, where Croy is still trying to work her way in to be more full time. So I would, if it was a either or, I would definitely keep Claire. I know that it's not an either or, so I'm trying to say how I think about that. With these trades, without knowing about anything else, because obviously I'm kept as much in the fucking dark as the current can keep somebody in the dark at this point. Without knowing if anything else is going on, what's this midfield look like?
Well, I think we're relying heavily on Lowe to play that more defensive midfielder position, which isn't great. I mean, yes, she can play back there as we're waiting for Di Bernardo to come back from maternity leave, but they're on the other side of 30. And yes, Lowe is, still pushing for a national team spot because it sounds like Emma Hayes is still leaving one open for her if she can make it. But, if they're looking long term for a team that's surrounding everywhere else except for Dabinia, it's an old midfield.
How about you, Daniel?
It's interesting. The signing of Bailey Feist on the return really makes a whole lot of sense now. I mean, I don't think it would be crazy to rule out a future move too if they felt like they needed to shore something up. But I also think what it does do is it on the defensive side of things, if you needed to move to a dual pivot or you needed to spell Low, there's not really you're really banking on Vanessa Di Bernardo coming back and being really ready to go, roaring, ready to go right away. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but I also think that's something that is a pretty big gamble. Also, I do think to me, it signals that there's a bit of a structural change in how this midfield will work. You have no more Bia, right? But Bia was a player that really dropped deep into the midfield and did a whole lot, and it kind of made them at times not really need another midfielder. Well, if you lose Bia and you're going to have Ali Sentnor be your off-the-shoulder back nine, like Armas talked to us about recently, and you've got Temwa, who does a whole lot of defensive work, and Cooper, who does a whole lot of defensive work, all right, you might need a few more of the numbers in the midfield if you have a striker that's constantly trying to get in behind the back line and there's not somebody who's occupying that space in front of the center backs as much. Well, that is Dabinia. And I'll say Claire's biggest area of growth that she probably needed in her game is the area of the field that Croy Bethune simply excels at. But the question for me is all along is and I put this in my story on it, is the idea of Dabinia, Ali Sentnor, Temwa Chawinga, Croy Bethune, and Michelle Cooper being a front five for the Kansas City Current sounds pretty freaking exciting and awesome in attack, right? Take that at face value, nor nothing. You're sitting there saying, sweet, that's nasty, right?
Would help us whenever it's a national team break.
Yeah, and so, right. But at the same time, well, that's why you don't play through them, aka cough, cough, MLS. But when you look at that back line then in the midfield and the spine, is that back five, the defensive five, is that going to hold? And I don't know. I don't think I on paper it doesn't. I don't feel good about that.
No.
And so then you're playing one of Bethune or Dabinia. Is Dabinia coming off the bench? Is she playing on the wing because Tim was hurt further than everyone thinks? Is Ali Sentnor not working out as the 9 and so Dabinia is the 9? Like those are all like hypotheses. Whatever. Sorry, words aren't that may not have been the best English, but those are all like hypotheses that you can work with going into the season. And ultimately, none of that's going to get answered until we're about 5, 6, 7 games into the season, because they won't tell you what their starting lineup is for a preseason game, and they won't tell you who scored a goal or any of that kind of stuff. So you're not quite sure exactly what they're doing in terms of this setup and this buildup. And it's a big question mark that we got to figure out. And we'll see if we figure it out anytime soon. But I think that to me is the big question right now. Like there's a lot of really shiny attacking pieces. There's 2 concerns I have. There's one ball and there's not a whole lot of defensive protection, especially when you factor in who the outside backs are for the Current, because that's also a way that they created numbers in the midfield was by throwing Ellie
Right.
Wheeler up or throwing Izzy up. And so those are all the problem solving things that Chris Armas is going to have to work through and figure out how to make this all work.
They were able to be so offensive the last 2 years because they had Claire, who was admittedly learning these last 2 years, but became really good at reading the game and being in the right spots to slow things down, stamp it out. And you had players like Timwa coming back and helping, Michelle being a front defender and all that type of stuff. We don't know how long Timwa will be out for real. We think Cooper's probably close to back to training, if not back to training. We don't know how long term that is or what that effect will be. But you're just going to have a lot of older players in there that are going to have to be covering a lot of ground. It'll be interesting.
At least until a college signing can figure it out quickly.
Yeah, because again, none of the signings were true midfielders, right? I mean, they're either defenders or forwards. So I don't know if there's another one out there. Again, there could be another move coming that we don't know about. Don't know who that would be.
I do think it's very funny that people say, "Oh, this happened," and is this going to free up a player like the fancy roster spot player, whatever they're called, the high impact player spot that they can go spend on Katarina Macario? Like, you really want another freaking attacker in this crazy mix? I don't think so. I think we're all begging for a 6 at this rate. So
they had a 6. They had one of the best ones in the league, if not the best one.
They did. I will throw out a tiny reminder. Gabrielle Robinson did play a bit as a 6 at times.
We do feel a little bit more comfortable when ball's back there too. You know,
I am not. I'm not really like trying to like that. That is nothing on insight, but there was a period where she did come into some games, especially in Blanco's first spot and under when it was KC Barcelona, according to Caroline Hairblom, where she played at the 6 momentarily because she felt like beating her head into the wall with Stina Bollisager and Lauren, neither of whom really cared to defend the second action on a ball.
Well, I don't know if it was Caroline beating her head against the wall or if that's who she was told to play because they spent a lot of money on them.
That's also true. Yeah, I'm interested to see how it shakes out. To talk about like Croy Bethune for a second and like just like how much of an actual baller she is, and she will bring a lot of really awesome moments on the field.
Momentarily, we'll get there.
Okay,
but let's talk about Croy for a second, but only in the fact of why was she available? Was it because they needed the money because they now are paying Trinity Rodman a shitload of money?
It sounded like she from the team's report, the team's own statement, because their team actually put out a statement about the player that they were trading away for a large sum
I didn't
of
read
money.
theirs. I did go to Bay FC to get information on the trade about Claire because the press release from Kansas City was nothing.
The Washington's president of soccer operations put out a quote basically acknowledging that that Croy asked for a trade, that she requested a trade to experience development and growth somewhere else, basically, and that they worked to find a spot that worked for her, aka player gave consent for trade, and that was a financially feasible situation for them. Now, interleague transfer funds cannot be used towards a roster spot, like, and buying down salary cap hits. That's only allocation money. They did receive $100K in allocation money from the Current as part of this. The Current did not get any allocation money from Bay FC, so it's just 1.1 million in cash, basically. That can be that counts as a minus 1.1 million on their transfer ledger for this calendar year, whereas the purchase of Croy Bethune, the purchase, counts as a negative K. So now they're in the negative by 2K, which means they have 2K more than anyone else in the league to work with on that transfer, the net transfer budget, right? So they have spent negative $200,000. That makes sense.
You had too many negatives in there.
Too many negatives, right? It's
Yeah.
making it a little crazy. But anyways, they want it. Sorry, we went on a long road there, but this does not help the Washington Spirit necessarily too much do anything about trying to make their roster fit, because they've already let go of like 3 or 4 players, and that were high contract brings in SAR, a couple of others that came in that they've pushed out now in the last couple of years for large amounts of money that they probably needed to offset the books a bit and get Trinity Rodman's mega contract under wraps here. Also, Croy Bethune is under contract for an extra year, so her contract is up in 2027, so she will potentially be here through 2027, at least for sure this year, barring any more crazy whiplash.
Which really wouldn't shock me at this point.
No. The NWSL should literally just be expect the unexpected and knee injuries as like their motto. That would be pretty fitting.
So now to the technical ability of Croy, never throw a baseball Bethune again. Should I explain that one? Just in case?
No,
I would.
Here's the thing. I tweeted this earlier. I said, I'm sad because that's just the one thing you could make fun of her about, because she's just such a good soccer player that, tearing her MCL by throwing out the first pitch at a Washington Nationals game.
When she was on such a good run in her rookie year, like 17 games or something and 5 goals, 10 assists.
Yeah, she had 15 goal contributions in 17 games as a rookie. And then last year had 2-2. Granted, head coach left. She was coming back from injury. That team did not have Trinity Rodman. Team was very weird last year. But
yeah. Didn't have her for a good chunk of the year.
Yeah.
Right. But that rookie year is so good that, she missed a good chunk of that season and still got rookie of the year.
And midfielder of the
and
year.
midfielder, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you watch her with the national team, right? You see that goal she scored over the break in January. Croy Bethune's a really freaking good player.
And she can celly.
She can celly very
We saw
well.
that.
She is really crafty and technical on the ball. She is really good in tight spaces. I think her passing ability within the final third through small gaps and windows is like better than Debinha, but I think she has the on the ball like ability and technicality, maybe not the trickery that Debinha has, but she is the closest thing I think I've seen to an American Debinha at times. I think she's maybe a little bit better passer than Debinha is, and I especially think in some of those like the little through balls and the times that she's trying to slide something in to a really small window to that off the shoulder run from Temwa. Like I'm thinking about that. Like those are the kind of things you have players in front of her that all want to be runners, like a Debinha, like a Ali Sentnor, like a Temwa Chawinga. They all want to be runners. You got to have someone that can really dish them the ball in the final third, and that is what she is very freaking good at doing.
I think she might be a better passer because she actually passes more.
Correct. But I mean, she pulls off a lot more of those little tricky like passes where you say, oh my gosh, how'd you see that? Then I think Debinha tries them and they don't always come off. Croy makes them connect. And she has a sneaky, for how small she is, she has a sneaky, powerful shot to her game that her placement's good. She'll whip it in there. When she scores, it's usually a banger. So I am very much looking forward to the excitement that she will bring. This team, whether they're going to score a boatload of goals, they might concede a lot more than we saw last year, but they're going to score a boatload. You would hope.
As long as they can get the ball out of the defense and up to them. There is that.
Fair.
Again, Still not liking the totality of the two trades. No offense to Croy Bethune, because she is an amazing player.
That's fair. And I think it's fair for current fans at the moment to feel how they want to about it. Feel your feels.
Yeah. And I saw somebody list like all the players that have left the team in the last couple months. And yeah, for the most part, they're players who were not necessarily producing here or there. Nichelle Prince wasn't who we would liked her to have been.
Mhm.
You know, Steiglider,
Mhm.
Feist, but back. Mace
Mhm.
obviously left for a very good reason.
Yeah. I mean, Laurel Ivory
Via-
goes to Boston, but she's
Yeah.
probably not their starter now. But she's a solid backup who deserved an opportunity. Maybe
And
she'll do it.
plus being, I think that's near her home, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if you're going to be a backup, you might as well be a backup at home. But also, expansion teams have sometimes more opportunities, whether somebody else is supposed to be the starter or not. So, all right, what else should we talk about today? I mean, it was pretty much 2 big trades. Anything else?
Well, I mean, that's about it. It's been pretty quiet. So it's not like we have finals to
He
do.
always
Well-
does this. He's always like really like. I mean, you guys, people listening can't see the video, but he's always like really like thinking about it hard, and he's like, "Well, I got nothing."
We're not getting anything in terms of lineups and scores. We got 0 goal highlights. I don't know if that means that there was no goals, but we got absolutely nothing out of their friendly with Angel City.
Yes, and Angel City didn't post anything either on their socials.
They have mutually agreed not to say anything.
But in a few days, there'll be videos of the current playing. I forgot who, but on Valentine's Day at
Will there be?
Coachella. Isn't Coachella supposed to be streamed no matter what?
No, not all of them are.
Okay, well,
Austin Chicago MLS game today was not streamed because the teams are basically splitting the cost of doing the stream, and Chicago decided not to pony up, is what I heard,
interesting. Okay, yeah, so we probably won't pony up then.
because they won't. Yeah, I haven't seen anything saying they will be broadcast. Have you?
No.
So
Oh, just outside of it all seemed, like you said, seems to have been announced by each team. And
Yeah.
Sporting announced theirs.
Let's just get tickets. It might be easier to buy tickets to go down there than to
Well,
get anything
if-
out of this team.
Maybe Chad Smith can just live stream it on YouTube
Oh my god,
for us.
we could have him
Just
live
stand
stream
there-
it on Casey
Stand
Soccer
there with his
Journal's
iPhone.
Instagram.
I'm guessing they would probably hunt him down and stop him. But then again, they would actually have to pay attention to the KC Soccer Journal for that to happen. Sperry's making a face at my comments. All right, I got nothing else. I'm grumpy, more so than even before when we started this conversation. So
feel your feels and laugh at Washington Spirit's crash out because they've gotten nothing so far out of this.
They got Trinity Rodman.
Okay.
Forever.
Okay,
who's going to pass her the ball?
Lacey Santos, Hal Hirschfeld. They still
Yeah.
got ballers. They
Yeah,
still
they
got
do.
ballers. Made it to the NWSL Championship game with a quarter of Trinity Rodman. They made it to another NWSL Championship game without Croy Bethune. I think they have found a way with a lot of the other players that they have on that roster to make things happen.
Fine. Damn it.
Usually helps when you have a good spine and a good D-mid.
It does, doesn't it? I
one
don't
day.
know. I'm sure the current will go find one somewhere. Probably will be 35 years old.
Kimmy's not the GM anymore. And neither is Peter Vermees, so you're fine. Probably find someone under the age of 30. Don't be that down.
You know what? I got nothing else. If you guys don't have anything else, we can keep talking. But I'm going to end this damn recording. We are out.